the Democrats, as you mentioned, still have a lot of work to do to be the life raft for these people who want to jump off the sinking ship. But like the ship is sinking, and I'm going to posit. I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory, but it's a theory that I think might be true. I think the way this ends at the rate that we're going is that Vance coups Trump, works with the congressional Republicans to impeach him. And
I agree.
And I know you're like, oh, I know, TJ, you're like, impeachments never work. But here's the thing. It's already getting so bad that as the reader mailbag question asked is stated, the Republicans just lost a PA state legislative seat
15
that was plus 15 Trump in a couple months. That, and again, it's a little special elections. The Democrats have been outperforming everything. Like, you have to take all of this into account. But plus 15 is a big number. And also today, it came out that Elise Stefanik is being pulled from her nomination. And the reason that's important is that she is a Republican from New York. They are no longer confident that they can hold her seat if it goes up for re-election in a special election. That seat, what was it? Was it 30?
Oh, was it 30? Wow.
It was really high. I forget exactly what Trump did in that district, but like it was, and she won it a couple months ago, and they're afraid. They're pulling her out. They are revoking their own plans because they're no longer confident that they can succeed with them. And that is indicative to me that their internals are showing the ship sinking. And if that's the case, this rapidly, again, politics doesn't move this rapidly. That is a rapid descent. And if that's the case, if we keep going on this pace where suddenly plus 15, plus 20, plus 30 Trump districts are suddenly up for grabs, well, a lot of congressional Republicans are going to start to get pretty damn antsy. And as TJ mentioned in the beginning of the show, JD was oddly critical of the commander-in-chief here. Didn't seem to be all aligned with what Trump is doing. And if we do remember correctly, JD called him Hitler.
You did.
I think JD is honestly relatively intelligent. Like
I have been saying that the whole time, that we should be afraid of JD Vance. He's kind of awkward in front of a microphone, but he is, not only is he legitimately brilliant, like top of his class at Yale, like pulled himself out of, I think he probably exaggerated how badly off he was as a kid, but like he is legitimately very, very smart and very, very cunning, very conniving. The way he was, like, a lot of people have tried to change their image. The way he was able to successfully convince everybody he was this hard scrabble, like from the boonies, poor kid with like who struggled against all the odds. Like he went to Yale, like, and a couple of years ago he was not liberal, but like he was a reasonable Republican. He called Trump Hitler. He's had his positions relatively open and relatively liberal, especially compared to like MAGA. He is smarter and better at thinking about the future than almost anybody else in the Trump administration. And there's no heir apparent. Like, that's been the thing about MAGA. We've seen this kind of time and time again, where MAGA doesn't exist without Trump. It's crazy because like a lot of his support are people that only care about Trump. Like their politics are aligned, but like they don't keep up with the news at all. They don't pay attention. Their vote, they're backing Trump. And if Trump dies, God willing, if Trump dies tomorrow live on television, like there is not an heir apparent MAGA messiah. Like who's gonna catch that? So they have to make sure that they take the party over before that happens, and then they have to fill a vacuum. And I don't think, like, nobody clip this and then come back to me in 6 months or a year and be like, wow, what a stupid prediction. But like, they don't have to impeach him either. They can bust out the cabinet vote and say like, he's out of his mind. Trump has gotten really, really dangerously reckless. I mean, he's always been like that, but like throwing tariffs on in spite of last week's tariffs being like terrible, letting Elon Musk like run rampant. JD Vance has managed to sidestep all of that, to be totally Teflon clean of that.
Mm-hmm.
He's letting Trump, like bull in a china shop, destroy everything in a way that will make Trump supporters stop supporting Trump. And then he can swoop in, and he's going to have the support of at least the Republican politicians, because they only care about power. And again, JD Vance is competent. And so they're better off with him in power than they are with Trump.
Yep.
And the only thing stopping that from happening is that they're not sure if the public would be behind that yet.
Oh.
As soon as they're confident enough that the public would stop backing Trump, as long as it meant Republicans could stay in power, they're gonna. No one likes Trump legitimately. Like maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe Lauren Boebert, but like these people do not like each other.
Yeah, like the leadership of the Republican Party has never liked Trump. To see their real feelings about them, you can see what they said about him in 2015 when he was running. Republican donors aren't necessarily a big fan of Trump. The Republican intelligentsia, to the extent that that even exists at all, they're not fans of Trump either. But the base, they love Trump, like you mentioned. And that's why I think the Vance coup, I just don't see it happening. Because, like you said, they don't know if the public will support it. They do know. They know the public won't. They know the public.
Well, no, but that's the thing, TJ.
Yet.
If we're right now, you're right. I'm saying if the current trajectory, if Republicans are losing, if the midterms come and it is a bloodbath where Trump plus 30 seats are suddenly contestable, and you get Democrats taking the House and the Senate back, and you only need 10 Republican votes in the Senate and 30 Republican votes in the House to impeach Donald Trump, and JD Vance goes to those guys and he says, make me president.
Yeah.
I'll make sure you're taken care of.
Okay, well, so which do you guys would think is more likely? That would happen, where JD Vance was able to convince, well, hey, we got crushed, so back me and let's do a soft coup or an actual coup of Trump, or Trump comes out and says these elections were rigged, we actually won, and the base buys it. Because my money's on the second one, because that's what happened last time. If they weathered the 4 years of the Biden presidency and the losses they incurred there, I don't see any way that the core, like the base, like you said, like it's not necessarily the political people that they're worried about. It's all the people who don't give a shit about politics, like the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the people who didn't pay attention to this show at all, and that Trump is never going to lose. I just don't think he will. I think that he's not going to die in office. Trump is going to live to be 104 years old. I'm
He's a machine. It's insane.
He is going to outlive every one of us here. Like he lives off a diet. He doesn't exercise. He lives off a diet of hamburgers and Diet Coke, and his blood probably looks like motor oil, but he is going to live forever. I don't think there's any way around that. And I think you're 1,000,000% right, Ben, that without Trump, I think it all collapses anyway. But I don't think that, let's say Trump did die, or they did try a soft coup of Trump, the Republican Party, as we know it, needs to completely realign. They're never going to get, there's no heir apparent for this. The only person, I thought about this for a long time, the only person who could possibly, I think, pick up the mantle and do something with this is like Ivanka Trump, but I don't think she's going to. I don't think that there's any out there. There's anybody else like JD Vance. John, do you remember this? When you mentioned JD Vance, I just had to play this clip right here. Do you guys remember this commercial JD Vance did?
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans?
I love that. I love it because it's like, oh yeah, that's the Republican base. That's what they're going for. JD Vance just knows his target audience and he goes right with it. So yeah, what do you guys say, Ben? Sorry.
I think that's where the Hegseth stuff that we were talking about earlier comes into play, because if you just think about it for a second, all of the pieces are in place for a coup. It doesn't need any planning. They could pull the trigger at any point. The cabinet is full of people who don't have any real loyalty to Trump, who are smarter than him. There's a lot of people that aren't, but there are enough people in and around the cabinet that they could bust out the
27th Amendment,
27th of what? Yeah, they could pull it out and they could just sack him. The only thing stopping them from doing that in any given second is that they're not sure if the public is on their side. And so this is where the Hegseth stuff comes in, where if people on the ground, the pure MAGA Trumpies, that they're not political, They don't pay attention to the news. They are just purely in Trump camp. Now that they're starting to feel the pain of the tariffs, of the policies, that they're not going to be getting their Social Security, once their support for Trump starts to waver, they're still Republicans. They still want to be in power. And as soon as that fairy tale honeymoon of Trump doesn't have a hold of them anymore, that's when like somebody like JD Vance can swoop in and he can take it, because all that they need is just that slight bit of wavering of support. And we were talking earlier about like, yeah, it's suspicious that Trump wasn't in that conversation. I don't think it was, because like even some of them are smart enough to not try to implicate the president. But I could see a world where JD Vance is actually kind of maneuvering, manipulating this kind of stuff, because as soon as Trump hurts the wrong people, hurts that 33%, and they don't even have to abandon him. They just have to waver a little bit. And then someone like Vance can swoop in. So they're letting Elon Musk has the worst popularity in history, just tied with Trump. They're letting them destroy the government past what they would want to, so that it's actually hurting Trump's base. And as soon, like I said this 100 times, but like the more I think about it, as soon as they have that one final piece, that little domino, they have everything else is in place. All that they need is to know that they would have support, that they wouldn't lose the midterms, or that it wouldn't be like that much of a scandal. Because Trump, for better or worse, stands on his own.
He does.
So if Trump rises, he may try to carry people, but like it's still Trump alone. And if Trump falls, all of a sudden we never like Trump. Like our hands are clean of this.
Yeah, and Ben, I'm so glad that you're like slowly coming to this, and you're just, the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. This is what happened to me. Like I had the I said it like in a conversation, just like fucking around, and then I thought about it more, and I was just like, this makes sense. Because TJ, I think the thing that you're not considering is that you're right. If you look at our known history of Donald Trump, the base has never ever wavered.
Yeah,
100%. But also, during the first Trump presidency, the base wasn't hurt by Trump. The base never felt pain as a result of Trump. They only felt good things. So why would they waver? Look at what happened in 2008. Like, look at what happened when Bush drove us into the Great Recession. We got a supermajority out of it, TJ. And like, yeah, I understand that like the Trump base is more fanatical than, Bush voters were back then, but like Republicans have always been fucking fanatical, and they lost a super majority. They're honestly lucky that that like a lot of the Democrats are actually conservatives, or else we would have actually seen real systemic change in this country at that point. And that wasn't nearly as bad. Like as bad as the 2008 financial crisis was, the incompetency that led there, like we had to make a fucking movie to explain it to people. This isn't going to have to be explained. Like everyone's going to see. This is all nuance. Like being pushed out beforehand. People will understand when the economy crashes. There's going to be no one to blame, and they didn't need to understand it in 2008 to just completely jettison the entire Republican Party. I don't think, like, again, if things continue going this bad electorally, if the Trump internals are telling them that they can't nominate Stefanik anymore because they're risking losing that seat in Congress, imagine what's going to happen in the midterms. It's going to be a fucking, unless they start getting better, unless things start getting better, which doesn't seem likely, it seems like this is just going to snowball and snowball and snowball until enough of the base gets siphoned off that congressional Republicans start feeling confident that they can coup Trump.
So there's two other things there. One is that the Vances, like the people that would coup Trump, they don't have to do anything. They just kind of have to step aside. That's a beautiful point for them, is that they don't have to conspire or plot. They don't have to do anything except let Trump be Trump. And also, Trump can't run again. Mm-hmm. So now they're in a position where, like, even the most MAGA of MAGA, like, let him have a third term or amend the Constitution, like, even they are starting to have to realize, like, there has to be somebody after Trump. They have to be open to something.
And Trump will never do that because Trump doesn't care about after Trump.
So I don't know. Like, I don't know what I'm not seeing that you guys are here, because I feel like the base was hurt during COVID. They just didn't blame Trump, which is what I think they're going to do. Sure, Trump did lose, but that's because like normal folks. Now, the base is what we're talking about, that, you know, the core people who love Trump, I think will always love Trump. If they haven't left him now, I don't think a bad economy is going to make them leave him in the next couple of years. And so, yeah, it could still hurt the Republicans. I agree there. And then Trump will be a lame duck. And people know that, well, we got to phase this guy. And it would make more sense to just kind of hang back. I mean, what else can he do? But I think that they will be gunning for that Trump support. I don't know. We can check back a few years from now. I just have a hard time imagining a Republican Party that isn't begging for Trump's endorsement, no matter how bad of a president he is, because you got to make it out of the primary. That's the problem they ran into last time, that they kept getting crushed like in the midterms and everything, because the sensible Republicans, but whatever, like the normal ass Republicans couldn't make it through the gauntlets of, conspiracy theorists and morons that populate the Republican primary. And those are all Trump people. So I don't know, maybe, but I have a hard time seeing it.
See, TJ, I think the thing you're missing, I don't think you're missing this necessarily. I think you're just not factoring it in appropriately, is that you just brought up COVID. Mm-hmm. I think shit is going to get so much worse than that. Like I think it's going to get so fucking bad. You can pick a rabbit out of the hat. Of what that means, I don't fucking know. Does it mean we go to war with Canada? Who fucking knows? Does it mean we go to war with the EU? Who fucking knows? Does it mean we just have a straight up war with Russia? Who fucking knows? Does it mean like 2 years of recession? Who fucking knows? I don't know how the bad things are going to play out. I've left the try to predict the future game in terms of specifics, because we can't predict this. You could have sat me down in a room, given me a typewriter, and had me type out every single possible fuck up that the Trump administration could make for a year, and I still wouldn't have arrived at. They're going to invite the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic to a group chat to discuss war plans. You can't predict the specifics, but I'm pretty confident that things are going to get really, really fucking bad. And the Trump plan of flooding the zone will eat him. Because in the first term, it didn't, because he flooded the zone, but he played with the gutters up, or played with the guardrails on the gutters. He was incapable of doing something too bad, because he allowed the adults in the room to have control over him. That's gone. The guardrails are off. It's just gutter ball after gutter ball after gutter ball. And eventually the base is gonna stop hitting us with these fucking bowling balls, man. That didn't happen in COVID, because COVID, that was the best time of Trump's presidency. As much as he did fuck up a lot of things, Operation Warp Speed, probably the best thing Trump did. Like, in terms of just, if we're looking at him like a normal president, I would probably say Operation Warp Speed was the greatest accomplishment of his presidency. I just don't think that it would play out the same way this time. I think it would get so much worse, and that's just one potential catastrophe.
I'm just not confident they're going to blame Trump no matter how bad it gets. I mean,
it's not all of them, PJ. There's still going to be the cultists. It's not about it's not even about like the base. It's about the people around them, the low information voters who don't pay attention much, who, if there's a recession, if there are hard times, they're forced to pay attention, shit's going to change.
There's two different things now. First of all, COVID was plausible deniability. It was cover. Anything going bad, even we can't say that Trump caused COVID. He certainly made it worse, but his supporters can use that cognitive dissonance and be like, who could have done a better job? It's COVID. They can use that as cover. But also, he's destroying the government. People were hurt. Trump voters were hurt in the first term by tax implications that were supposed to benefit them and didn't, and stuff like that. But that's on the margins. They're dismantling the government. They're Social Security is going to stop working. It's going to stop sending.
That's another big one. I didn't even bring up Social Security. The AARP crowd is going to murder him.
Yeah. So it's not like some Trump voters on the margins are going to feel some pain. It's every one of them is going to feel undeniable life changing, because they won't be able to afford their medication. They won't be able to afford food. They won't be getting any benefits. They won't have proper medical care. It's going to be undeniable, even to them. And even if they don't blame Trump somehow, even if they manage to only blame Musk or something like that, it doesn't matter. At a certain point, like, it doesn't matter how much they like Trump. It matters how much they're suffering. And as soon as that kind of flips, it's not like he can run again. Like, they don't have anything to lose by not supporting Trump anymore.
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Before we move on to the next one, I wanted to bring this up. I couldn't find a way to shoehorn this into the conversation, but Zeke made a comment about Pete Hegseth that I could not agree with more. But right here where he says Pete should have kept his job at Fox. He gets paid nicely to lie out his ass. Easiest job ever. I thought the same thing. Why would you trade having a high-paying job as a Fox News host? Think about how much easier this gig would be if we were conservatives. You wouldn't need to study, you wouldn't need to read, you wouldn't need to pay attention, you wouldn't need to look at historical data. You just read a headline and talk about how woke it is. And that guy got paid millions of dollars to do that. Why would you trade this for an actual job at the Department of Defense as the head of the Department of Defense? Unless, like you were mentioning, that he's one of the true believers. Like, maybe he is, this is my chance to do some good in the world and make it a worse place for everyone who's not a white Christian man.
That's the answer right there. Hegseth is a Nazi. We throw that word around, but when I say Pete Hegseth is a Nazi, I don't mean he's like inadvertently acting in line with fascists in our country. No, he's a fucking, not even just fascist, because again, fascist and Nazi are two very different things. He's a straight up Nazi. He's a white supremacist. He's like whatever motivates a Nazi. Again, this has always kind of been nebulous to me. So I could never, pretend to speak for Nazis, but like, that's the thing. He can do more of his Nazi shit as the Secretary of Defense. It's a dumb thing to do. As I said, if he was a reasonable alcoholic, he would never do this. But that's the case. These white supremacist alcoholics, turns out, not the most logical, forward-thinking people.
You can't trust them. Who can you trust?
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping him from going back. Like, how many people in the first Trump term were like, get in, get out, get a book deal, get a cushy, like, whatever Fox News gig or something. Like, they're just playing it for themselves, even the true believers. But like, you're right. Like, if Pete Hegseth was like on camera bending weird and it revealed like a swastika tramp stamp, like, I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
Swastika tramp stamp is the best swastika tattoo. In fact, that's my one problem with Inglourious Bastards. It should have been a tramp stamp.
Should have been a tramp stamp. I love that.
This has been our show. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much. I hope that your sexting game is just as good as one Warren G. Harding. And if it isn't, Ben, if you want to help people with their sexting game to get on Warren G. Harding's level, where can they find you for advice?
Most of the time I spend hanging out on Threads these days, but I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at This Is Ben Silver. TikTok I'm not on so much anymore because they banned me. So there I am. That was Ben Silver. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Ben. We really appreciate you joining us today. We hope you guys enjoyed the presidential scandals list to talk about all the stuff with the signal and everything. And I wasn't saying Warren G. Harding, but the jokes have been done to death. Catch you guys later.
Thank you.
Good game, folks. Good game.